Welcome to my channel on the best of fantasy. One of the main reasons I decided to start a Booktube channel was to help me on my quest for the best of fantasy. And indeed, I have found a lot of wonderful reads as a result of joining in this platform that we call Booktube. But also, I have had some life-changing friendships and some collaborations that have deepened my love for both some of my old favorites and some new discoveries. So this video is, in a way, a celebration of some of those great reads that I have discovered, but also a thank you to my fellow creators out there who have helped me to appreciate these reads even more than I might have on my own. So thank you to my friends out there, thank you to the community, and to all of you who have left comments and watched my videos over these last, 2.5+ years. It's been a wonderful journey. And I also want to mention, before I get into these favorite discoveries, that I am not going to be, of course, talking about some of my older favorites, the ones that I already had read before joining Booktube. And these include, of course, Lord of the Rings, the Malazan Book of the Fallen, the Earthsea series, the First Law series, most of it, not all, but most of it, Broken Empire, Broken Earth trilogy, American Gods, the Gentleman Bastard sequence, A Song of Ice and Fire, the Kingkiller Chronicles, Wheel of Time, Stormlight Archive. All of these are wonderful reads that I've enjoyed over the years, but they're not going to be in this video because I already read them before joining Booktube. So, what are some of the great reads that I have discovered? And who are the people who have helped me to appreciate them even more? Before I get into that, I just want to mention that this is not going to be ranked. I'm just going to be talking about these roughly in the order that I read them. Some of them overlap with others, so it's a pretty rough estimation. But nevertheless, let's get right into it here. The first one that I want to mention is Robin Hobb's Live Ship Traders trilogy. Now, I had read the Farseer trilogy before joining Booktube, before starting my channel. And I thought very highly of it. In fact, I made a video in the early days of my channel on why Robin Hobb's The Farseer trilogy is among the best fantasy. So obviously I had a very high opinion. But I will say that reading the Live Ship Trader trilogy and participating in a discussion of it with three of my friends, Chris from Chris's book is Cauldron, and Andy Smith, and Rhythma. That discussion also helped me to love this trilogy even more, and it launched Robin Hobb's ranking for me among my favorite authors all the way up to number 3. And she had been previous to that a bit outside the top 10. So obviously I was deeply moved and impressed by the experience of reading the Live Ship Traders trilogy, but also that discussion that I had with those three really enhanced my experience of it and appreciation of it even more. Another one that is new to me after joining this platform. Now, I already mentioned that I had read the Malazan Book of the Fallen before joining Booktube, but there were a lot of other Malazan reads that I had not yet read, and those include Ian Esselman's The Path to Ascendancy books, and I absolutely adored this prequel trilogy to both Malazan Book of the Fallen and Novels of the Malazan Empire. And speaking of Novels of the Malazan Empire, I also read this series after starting my channel. And Stephen Erickson's Carcanis trilogy, or at least the 2 books that are out at the moment. Still waiting for that third, Mr. Erickson. And even his Boccaline and Corbel Brooch novellas. And these are all reads that I undertook after starting my channel, and I had actually quite a few wonderful discussions on these. The principal one being the collaboration that I had with A.P. Canavan over at A Critical Dragon on the Malazan Book of the Fallen, but also Novels of the Malazan Empire by Esselmont. I also had some wonderful chats with AP and with Ruth and Bad on the Boccaline and Corbel Brooch novellas. And I've had some fantastic chats with Jimmy from the Fantasy Network and Joanna on Malazan. Not to mention lots of these are the people that I've probably had the most chats with on Malazan, but I've probably had more chats with various people on Malazan than any other series by far on Booktube, and just enjoyed every single one of them. Every single one of them has been a learning experience for me, and all of this has just launched the entire Malazan world, all of the Malazan series together into my very favorite fantasy experience, let's put it that way. So yeah, this is just tremendous. I mean, the reread and read with AP has been the greatest literary journey of my life, and it is absolutely life-transforming, just wonderful stuff. This is why, I mean, it's beyond anything I could have hoped for when I started the channel. Another one that I didn't even contemplate reading before joining Booktube, before starting a channel, is Stephen King's The Dark Tower series. And this is one that has also made its way into my top 10. In fact, I am right now in the middle of book 7, The Dark Tower, and loving every single moment of it. I knew that I was going to love this book when I read book 6, Song of Susanna, and it was my favorite Dark Tower book up to that point. And I had heard, there's some controversy about the last couple Dark Tower books. A lot of the Stephen King and even Dark Tower fans are not, those are not their favorite necessarily. There's just kind of a split there among the fans who love the ending and then those who don't. And I'm definitely finding myself among the ones who love the ending to the Dark Tower series. It's just so quirky and different and fun. And I got a lot out of my discussion of the Dark Tower series back when I had only finished 3 books in it. And I had a discussion with Mike from Mike's Book Reviews, and Sarah from Sarah Reads, and Chaz from Bookish Chaz. That was a really great discussion. And I'm hoping to get the quartet together again for another palaver once I finish this chunky one. And we will have some more insights, I'm sure, and some interesting discussion on that series. But wow, what an incredible experience that Booktube has given me with this series. Also a shout out to Johan from Library of a Viking, because before he was Library of a Viking, when he was a viewer back in the early days of my channel, encouraged me to read the Dark Tower series. So big shout out to him as well. It would be great actually to have a chat with him too about Dark Tower at some point, because it is one of his favorites. So what else have I got here? Well, I did a lot of reading of an author by the name of John Gwynne. I have read everything that he's published now at this point, and this was entirely because of Booktube and my friends here on Booktube. And of course, Patrick Leo is famous for championing this series, The Faithful and the Fallen, and also I heard about a lot of it from Mike, from Mike's Book Reviews, but I participated in a series of chats on The Faithful and the Fallen. I also covered the Blood and Bone trilogy with some of my friends too, but Faithful and the Fallen was the one that was just my introduction to Gwynne's writing, and these were chats that quite a few people took part in. There was Abby Salter, and there was Alex Nieves, and Alan from the Library of Alexandria, and Patrick Leo, and Sarah again from Sarah Reads, and also not for The Faithful and the Fallen, but I did have the chance to get together with Ed and Will from the Brothers Gwynne when we had an even bigger chat on, well, actually, it was on The Shadow of the Gods, but this actually has become the Bloodsworn trilogy. I love it even more than The Faithful and the Fallen, and that may have to do with the fact that I am a big-time fan of Icelandic sagas and all things Old Norse, but I also think it has to do with the fact that John Gwynne keeps growing as a writer. He is absolutely honing his craft, and I believe that his very best work is in the Bloodsworn trilogy. And again, these discussions that I've had with these friends just increased my joy on these journeys tenfold. It was just so wonderful to talk with all those people about The Faithful and the Fallen and the Banished Lands, and I hope to have more discussions on the Bloodsworn trilogy as well. A book that I do not have a copy of because, well, I actually saw it in the library and that inspired me to pick it up and read it. And of course, I had heard about it as well before. And this is the only book that I did not participate in a collaboration with, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention Piranesi as one of my favorite reads that I have discovered since joining Booktube. I loved Piranesi. Susanna Clarke already had my respect. I consider her to be an immensely talented author. I had loved and read, of course, the Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell long before joining Booktube. And so I was curious to find what she was doing in Piranesi, which is entirely a very different book from Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. But it is a book that continues to haunt me in the best possible way. A very dreamlike, very beautiful book. Melancholy as well, but beautiful, and somehow just in its quirkiness, so true to life in a way that I really just deeply touched me. So Piranesi is another one. And unfortunately, I never got to be in a chat with anyone on that, but I know that a lot of people on this platform love Piranesi. So I mentioned earlier that I had indeed read First Law before joining Booktube, before starting a channel. But I had not yet read, because it hadn't come out yet, the Age of Madness trilogy. And this actually has become my very favorite thing by Joe Abercrombie, the Age of Madness trilogy. I personally rate it even higher than the rest of the First Law series, including the original trilogy. As much as I love those original characters, I believe that, once again, Abercrombie has grown as a writer. And his incorporation of theme is just brilliant in the Age of Madness. And his character work, I believe, has even gotten better, particularly the character work when it comes to women characters. This trilogy, no doubt about this one, folks. The Age of Madness trilogy has Abercrombie's very best, strongest female characters. No doubt about it. Most complex, most interesting. And I just feel like he has really just hit a home run here in this trilogy. I love the Age of Madness trilogy. And I was fortunate to be in a discussion about it with Mike over at Mike's Book Reviews on his channel. In addition, I had my, I think it was the first collaboration I hosted on my channel. I just want to mention it. It is about the First Law before Age of Madness came out. But it was such an important moment for me to be in a chat hosted by myself on my channel with Mike and Patrick and with Mark from Slowly Read. And this was just a broad discussion on the First Law books. And it was the moment when I realized probably that I love being in these discussions. So it was an important moment for me, and it is definitely First Law related. But Age of Madness, just one of the best reads I have experienced since joining Booktube. Also, another author that I had read before starting a channel, it was Mark Lawrence. I had read his Broken Empire trilogy, but I had not yet read the Red Queen's War trilogy, which is set in the same world. It is a parallel story. In other words, it occurs roughly at the same time period as the Broken Empire trilogy. And I loved this. I loved the Red Queen's War trilogy and how much it added to my understanding of the world that was presented to me in Broken Empire, but also tonally. I just had a great time with this, with the first-person narrator, Jalin, one of Mark Lawrence's greatest comedic achievements is in Jalin. But also the relationship between Jalin and Snorri in this trilogy is extremely touching. And I think Lawrence is one of my favorite writers when it comes to writing about friendship, which is such an important theme and one that I think we all relate to. And related to this because, again, I had the chance to talk to a friend about this trilogy, and that was Mark from Slowly Read. We had a discussion mostly focused on Red Queen's War, but we brought in a lot about Broken Empire as well because the two are very much touch upon each other in some very interesting ways. So that was a wonderful chat that just added to my love and appreciation for what Mark Lawrence has done in both trilogies. And another one of my really just favorite collaborations I've had so far on Booktube was with the Price Quartet. And this is just a brilliant, brilliant 4-book series by Daniel Abraham that I never had heard of before. And of course, the person who has to get credit, who has shouted out more than anyone else, is in fact the long price prophet, Alan from the Library of Alexandria, who is responsible single-handedly for causing a shortage of copies of the Long Price Quartet, making it difficult for people to get copies. But I did procure my copies, and I participated in a wonderful read-along with some great people. It was such a wonderful experience to go through the 4 books with Alan and with Nico and with Sarah and with Andrew, and just, it was a fun time. It was a really fun time, very touching. The final book in this quartet, I still get shivers when I think about what Daniel Abraham did to me at the end of this series. Just beautiful stuff. And I never would have had as deep an appreciation of the series if it hadn't been for those friends here on this platform. So yeah, this is just a highly recommended, wonderful experience. Another really fantastic experience I had was to Ride Hell's Chasm by Jenny Wirtz. This was my introduction to Jenny Wirtz's writing. And I was fortunate to be in a discussion not only with the wonderful Joanna and the fantastic Blaze from Under the Radar SFF Books, but also Jenny Wirtz herself joined us for the discussion on To Ride Hell's Chasm, and what an experience it was. Jenny Wirtz is somebody that I could listen to for hours and hours and hours. Just the nuggets of wisdom that continually drop from her are just amazing. And this was a wonderful introduction, I think, to her writing, because I am going to be reading a much longer series by her. This is a standalone, and it was a great way for me to familiarize myself with her style, which is very distinct and I think timeless in a sense. So this was just a very intense read as well, by the way. And once again, having that opportunity to be in that discussion with those wonderful folks just added so much to my appreciation of that story. Another one that I am finding myself surprised to be involved in and delighted at the same time is my ongoing read of Vinland Saga. So I have finished reading the first 2 arcs 1 and 2 of Vinland Saga. And the person that I must give credit for this is Murphy Napier. I had a wonderful time talking with Murphy when she was a guest for Dear Dr. Fantasy, and she gave me a recommendation. I have been hearing a lot about manga from a lot of my viewers, from a lot of you guys, and thinking, well, maybe I should, I'm an old dog, but I can learn new tricks, and maybe I should give manga a try, but what would be the best manga for me to start with? Murphy gave me this recommendation. And others had also, of course, mentioned Vinland Saga to me because people know that I love Old Norse stuff, I love Viking stuff, Old English stuff, and this is a manga very much inspired by all of that. In fact, Makoto Yukimura has really steeped himself in the Icelandic sagas, and he's done his homework, really done a beautiful job with all of that. And the experience of reading the manga, just immediately, I knew that this was going to be fun. But discussing these books with Murphy has proven to be an absolutely moving and wonderful experience. I feel like I am just so fortunate to be here on this platform, to know all these wonderful people, to have had these opportunities. And this is the community. The community aspect of all of this was something that I wasn't even prepared for, the depth and the beauty of this community. And so I'm just so grateful to all those people for helping me to love all these great stories. And there is so much more to look forward to as well. I have plans for many future collaborations, many stories on the horizon, some of which I've already started, which are series. And I know these are going to be favorites as well. One of the toughest things I'm ever going to have to do again probably is going to be to do a top 10 video. I have no idea how I'm going to do that because I've discovered so many fantastic reads here. But I do have some great collaborations planned and some definite potential favorites here to invade my top 10. One of which, as I mentioned earlier, the Jenny Wirtz series, Wars of Light and Shadow. I am already embarking on that. I read the first book, Curse of the Mist Wraith, had some great discussion with Janny again, and with AP, and with Joanna and Jimmy, and I am so excited to be reading that series. Another one, Realm of the Elderlings. So I mentioned that I had read Farseer before joining Booktube, and that I read Liveship Traders after. And I have just gotten the kick in the pants that I needed to continue with this tremendous series, Realm of the Elderlings. I'm going to be participating in a series of discussions on the various trilogies, and I know there's one that's 4 books, but the various series within the Realm of the Elderlings. So that is the kick in the pants I needed, because I'm going to be reading the Tawny Man trilogy early next year in order to participate. But Mike from Mike's Book Reviews is the one organizing all of this, and Madison will be participating, and so will Scott, and so will Jake Bishop. So that's going to be a really fun time, and I need to read the rest of the Realm of the Elderlings in order to keep participating. But we're going to be discussing Farseer and Liveship Traders, and then somewhere I think around March or so next year, we'll be moving on to the Tawny Man trilogy. So I'll be reading those in order to keep up with those discussions and participate in them. So that's going to be great. Also, Book of the Ancestor by Mark Lawrence is one that I am currently, I've got the 3rd book to read. I'm loving it so far, and I'm going to be in a discussion of that with Angela from Do Unicorns Read, and the Sundered Nation trilogy by Von Roycroft, a recent self-published book that I just loved, and that's going to be a trilogy. The Severing Sun is the first book that I read. Greenbone Saga, I haven't even started yet, but I keep hearing so much about it. I'm excited to be reading that, and I will be talking about that one with Taylor from Made Between the Pages, and also Book of the New Sun. I am very, very sure that I'm going to have a great time reading that one. That I'm going to be discussing with Matt from Matt on Books. The Second Apocalypse, how can I forget that? I'm in the midst of that. I've already read the first book, The Darkness That Comes Before, and I'm committed to finishing at least the first trilogy, Prince of Nothing. I probably will go on to finish the rest as well, but I'm in a group read of that with Jimmy and Joanna and Raf Blutaxt, and that has just been wonderful so far. What else? I mean, good grief. Books of Babel, I'm going to be reading those by Josiah Bancroft, and Alan has agreed to discuss those with me, because that's another series that he has championed for sure around here. Dresden Files, I mean, I'm 5 books into that now, and it's not yet a favorite, but I'm hearing the fans, and I'm listening to them, and I expect it to increase in my estimation with each book going forward, because that is what everyone says happens. Ash and Sand by Richard Nell, wonderful introduction to that I read Kings of Paradise, and I intend to finish that trilogy and have a discussion of it with Steve over at Steve Talks Books. The Discworld series, my goodness, I've read now 4 Discworld books, so probably not enough to declare it a favorite yet, because there are just so many of them, but it's going to be wonderful to continue to read Discworld, and I've been in discussions already with Alan from the Library of Alexandria, and also Alan, my dad, recently, so I'm sure I'll be in more discussions on Discworld. So there's just so many. There'll probably be many more I don't even know about right now, but I am so excited to continue on my quest to discover the best of fantasy. That's it from me for now. Until next time.